It's a big day. It's a great day. It's a bittersweet day. Bittersweet, I can't even talk. Bittersweet day for some of us who've been here all of these years. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm being asked by, I think that's what that signal means. I'm being asked if you could squish in. They didn't actually say squish. That's my word. Anything you can do to make room for folks. We've had, big crowds all weekend long. And we expect, does anybody ever come late at 11:15? We expect another, the last few weeks we've been sitting, lots of people had to sit out in the lobby, which has been pretty common the last few years. That problem's about to be solved, at least for a while. So anyway, I've been asked to have you squish. And all right, thanks. You may be seated. Glad you're here. Listen, if we haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, my name's Terry Smith. I'm the lead pastor here at the Life Christian Church. And I'm so glad that you've joined us on this weekend. This is a really big weekend in the history of this church. And I know, as always, that we are blessed with the presence of folks who are here for the first time. We're so glad you're here. And then folks who are relatively new to us, who wouldn't have a sense of who we are or a sense of our history. And so I would ask you, and I think that you'll enjoy this, I would ask you to indulge us over the next little while as we as we talk about our past 17 years here in this building. And the real signal thing is that over the past 17 years in this space, we have seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people's lives changed by the power of Jesus Christ and the ministry of this church. And that's really the thing that motivates us. That's the thing that excites us. And what we're going to do over the next little bit is we're going to tell a little bit of the story and do it in a way that I hope will both bring, surface fond memories to people who've been here for a while, but also be encouraging and helpful to people who are here for the very first time, who may or may not ever be with us again. I hope that you'll be encouraged by the time that we spend together. So here's the deal. First of all, everybody doing okay? All right, just making sure. So, 21 years ago, Sharon and I came here to West Orange, invited by a very small congregation. We had 54 people who elected us as pastor here, elected me as pastor here at the Life Christian Church, then called New Life Church. And we were meeting in the basement of Holy Trinity Church here on Main Street. And me being the huge visionary I was at 29 years old, with a head full of hair, quickly wanted to move us out of that basement. And I did. We moved across the street to the cafeteria at the Washington Street School. I was a big dreamer. And then about 6 months later, we moved down the street to the West Orange Community House, where we met every morning in the kind of gymnatorium there at the West Orange Community House. And we met there for, I'd say, 3 years or so. And sometime into that run, probably a couple of years into that run at the Washington Street School, I knew that we needed a place that we could meet, that we could call home. I actually moved here with a very idealistic view of things and thought that we would be a church that might never buy a building. And I think that works for people in other places who feel called to different things. But it was just a couple of years into my run here that I realized that wasn't going to work for us. Not here, not in West Orange, not with the kind of thing that we were called to do. So I had a real shift in my thinking. We started saving all kinds of money all kinds of money. I think that when we started the search for this building, we had saved $25,000. It's supposed to be funny. That we didn't have any money. We were struggling just to survive as a congregation. But over the course of years, we'd saved up about $25,000, and I knew that it was time for us to start a search for a building. How we would afford it, none of us knew. But I put together a team of people. Denise Korzakowski, who you're going to hear from in a few minutes, was one of the people on that team. And I said, let's start praying and searching for a building. And it was probably a week later that Denise called me and said that she had found this place. This actually was 3 buildings at that time. There were 3 separate entrances from the street. One to a stationery store, which is where Kid Zone is now. One into this space, which was one gigantic space, no walls on either side of you at that time. This had been for many years a bowling alley. Many people in this area finally remember it that way. When we bought it, it was a big printing factory. And so stationery store where Kid Zone is, printing factory here, and then a little beauty parlor where our Kid Zone, what used to be the coat closet, which we turned into a Kid Zone 5th and 6th grade classroom up front, that and the little green room that I used back there, which is literally painted green, was a beauty parlor. Well, by God's grace and all kinds of miraculous happenings, purchased this property. And through the sacrifices of the still relatively small group that comprised this church, tremendous sacrifices of giving, and then things like, I think I actually told this story recently, we had we had great credit, but just not a long history. And I knew the president of the local bank, and he wanted to loan us money, but he couldn't justify it to his board. And it looked like that this whole thing was going to be dead until we had several families in our church step up and put up the equity against the loan. Those are the kind of risk people took. Those are the kind of sacrifices people made. Thankfully, Sharon and I did that. We were one of the families. Thankfully, we were able to release all those families from that obligation within probably 6 months by God's grace as we continue to grow. But those are the kinds of things that people did to be able to purchase this building. And then a big part of our story here at the Life Christian Church is that we didn't have any money to build out this space. And so, I mean, by the time we made a down payment, really, we didn't have any money. And I still don't really know how I think we spent, if I remember right, we probably spent $125,000 renovating this whole thing. I'm not quite sure to this day exactly how that happened. It kind of every week a little bit would come in and we'd do some more work. But we decided that the only way we could do this was to do it ourselves. And so we had a contractor named Ted Krause, who's a big part of our story here. Ted has now passed away. Ted Krause lived in Egg Harbor Township, and Ted was the contractor on this job. He was a member of our church. There were actually for a number of years, probably 10, 15, 20 people who drove here every weekend to worship with us from Egg Harbor Township. It's about 120 miles away. Ted, every Friday would come up and he'd work with primarily it was men in here doing the physical work. Well, I guess that's not true. Because I know Sharon and a number of women actually were here doing a lot of the work when it came to the painting and all of that. And then the project was led through the week by a legend here at TLCC, Frank Korzakowski, who we lost just a few short years ago. Frank was a larger-than-life personality. Just out of curiosity, how many of you here knew Frank? You were here in the Frank era. Okay. You just had to know Frank to know Frank. And Frank led the project through the week, and we'd come in here for 6 months. We came in here 6 days a week, and we just basically, Sharon and I and our 3 kids basically lived here. And Denise will speak to that for a moment, but that was a tremendously difficult and wonderful time in our church. Now, there are some people who have an idyllic notion about, maybe, we should have had volunteers do 747 or maybe do large amounts of the work. And I would simply say that if you've never led a project with volunteers like we did 17 years ago, please don't say that. Please don't say that. Because if you've never done it, then you just, we did it, we had to do it, I'm glad we did it, we have fond memories of that time, I don't ever want to do it again. And it was a tremendous strain on our family. It was a tremendous strain on our church family, and it was really hard during that time for us to effectively both do that project and do all the other things that a church does. But we did it. We survived it. We grew closer, though it was a strain. You know, you look back and you remember all the fun times, but trust me, I had a lot more hair when that thing started. And we moved in this building. Now, we also had a tremendous, ferocious zoning board battle. Neighbors in the area who did not want us to be here, who later, en masse, were thrilled we were here. You know, part of the story of the kind of the turnaround in West Orange 15 years ago or so was that we became an anchor in this neighborhood. And that's a story that's been told publicly by mayors and council people and so on and so forth. And some of the very people who resisted us became our close friends. And part of the reason why we stayed in West Orange is just to be frank, the leaders of this community almost begged us not to leave the community because we became such an important part of the township. They're the ones who brought us the idea of buying the Ridgeway campus. They're the ones who helped us, you know, make the trade between the Ridgeway campus and now what we call 747 Northfield Avenue. But it wasn't like that 17 years ago. 17 years ago, we fought for everything that we have. And this is part of the story of our church. And some of the people who were huge in that era are people who are no longer with us. Ted Krause has passed away young, early in life. Frank Korzakowski still is a relatively young man. We lost Frank. Marlene Edelman, who was a big part of the story in those days. We lost Marlene. And I feel like I need to mention the names of some of those people who've gone before, who made great sacrifices, who helped us get where we are now, but now are witnessing it from a different place. And, I think about them a lot during this time of transition and excitement as we're moving to a new future. We leave a very humble place. We leave a humble place. We're moving to a grand, really spectacular building on a spectacular property. Who would have ever dreamed that this congregation that moved into this place 17 years ago would have that kind of an opportunity? We do. But we want to make sure that we always continue to be in our basic DNA who we have always been. This church is a wonderful church. It's a wonderful church. And it's been made wonderful by, the faith, the sacrifice, the risk of so many people over so many years. So what we're going to do over the next few minutes is we're going to have 6 people, a couple of them will be couples, who are going to come up, who are just going to tell a little bit of their story. Some of it's directly related to this building, but really the big story is the idea. The big story is the idea that we've seen so many lives changed. And I look around this room, I see people, I can start calling people out. And if I told you some of the stories that are sitting in this room of people's lives being changed, it's just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. And so we want to talk a little bit about that, okay? And we'll sing a song or two in the middle, and then I'm going to come up and I'm going to wrap up our time with about a 15-minute talk, kind of some comments, okay? You can call it a sermon if you want to, but really it's not going to qualify as a sermon. And if you came wanting me to do an hour-and-a-half sermon, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it today. Okay, and the pressure's on. The pressure's on. You say, you really going to do this in 15 minutes? The pressure's on, because that clock's going to hit 0. And when it does, I'm going to be done. Why is the clock set like that? Our theme during this season is, this is our time. Everybody say, this is our time. Say it, would you? Yeah. So, all right. To all the people in the lobby, they're giving me a signal. They give me all kind of signals back there. Some of them I'm concerned about because I don't see the full hand. I don't know exactly what's going on. I just see the signal. But to all the people in the lobby, you know, this lobby business is about over, okay? So, all right. So you're going to see a brief little clip of Frank Korzakowski, this legend, and good to see some of his family back here today. And then Denise is going to come and start off this thing, and I think you're going to enjoy this, okay? Thanks.
I guess I was only in the building about 10 minutes, and I realized that I actually was comfortable because I was having a good time. I didn't understand anything that was taking place, and I had no knowledge of scripture or anything else you can possibly think of, and who's this young guy trying to preach, but I really, really, really enjoyed myself.
That's my man. He had a good time here at this church. We came here in 1993 and seriously in need of a permanent location to worship. And I was on that committee that Pastor mentioned to find a place. And as I drove about town doing my errands and things, I looked at every for sale sign, wrote down phone numbers, made phone calls. And I just happened to be parked, or rather stopped at this stoplight out here. And I don't usually come down Harrison Avenue, but there I was. And right before the light turned green, I glanced and I saw a for sale sign. So now I had to go around the block because now I had to get this phone number. And I knew that this place was a bowling alley before, and I had bowled here a couple of times. So after getting that and making the phone call, I found out that it met all pastors' criteria. We had the square footage, the price per square foot. It was in West Orange, and it had no columns inside here. You know, and that was pretty important to have a worship center. And so we made an appointment. We came to see it, and as we came through the front doors, there was a sign on a decal on the glass that said, "Miracles happen here." So we thought that was kind of prophetic, and it turned out to be. After a long battle, we were able to purchase the building and begin the process. And really, except for the finish on these walls, which is a special finish, everything else was done by volunteers here at the church. Some of our battles had to do with the neighbors. They had read a letter that was anonymously circulated and telling the neighbors that we were a cult, that we were going to have a drug rehab center right in their neighborhood, or that we were going to have the homeless sleeping overnight here in the building, and then of course there was parking, which was always an issue, and so these things went on, and they turned out in mass, as Pastor said at the zoning board meeting. Though we're situated between the liquor store and the bar, and there were a couple of other drinking establishments around the corner, there was no need for another church in this area, God forbid. So, I mean, that was part of the thing. We didn't need a church. So, but when Frank went up to the butcher shop up the street to introduce himself, and the butcher, Angelo, he found out who he was and where he was connected. He immediately picked up one of his butcher knives and started to come around the counter. And so Frank left. Yeah. So when we needed some traffic statistics for the zoning board, of course we didn't have any money to pay for a traffic survey, so he parked himself outside on Sunday mornings early. He counted cars from Main Street, Eagle Rock, Mississippi, and Harrison Avenue so that we would have something to present to the board. The reason that Frank made these sacrifices, the reason that he was so in a hurry to do this thing, was because he came to faith in Christ later in life. He was in his early 50s, and he did not want anyone else to have to wait that long to have a place to go to meet Jesus Christ. He didn't want them to miss out. Thank you. He saw the miracles here at 106. He saw the miracle for 747. And every morning before work, he would stop up on the property to pray. And he did that, and he was stopped a few times by the cops and sent on his way. And then Pastor, he called the mayor, and Frank was now allowed to get on the property early in the morning without being chased by the cops. And he had great faith. He didn't know a lot when he came here, but he had great faith, and he grew under Pastor's leadership. Ted Krause, as Pastor said, would come up with his crew every weekend, and on Saturday mornings, I never knew how many people were sleeping in my house or where, but they were there, and they worked all weekend, and when Ted went home on a Sunday, then Frank took over for the week. The volunteers came 6 days and 6 nights a week. Sometimes they took their vacations to be here and get the work done. So the ladies, of course, we worked too. You know, we did our thing, but mostly we took care of our homes and our families, and we took over the leadership of the life groups, and the life groups then provided meals every night for the guys who were here working. And of course, then we had to clean up after them. So, yeah. Some of our volunteers are still here, some are gone, and we have had to make necessary changes over the years. But in the past, our elementary zone, we had a full kitchen in there, and we had a fellowship hall in our, that was in the preschool zone. In the elementary, we had 4 offices. We had our copy room. We had a little conference room. So that's how we utilized that space. But we also had a prayer room here. We had a library. We actually had a coat room, you know, and when we outgrew the space, we had to make preparations to change all that, and that's when we got the Ridgeway campus and moved our offices up there so we could accommodate our children. So now it's time to move out of 106 and move into 747. And I can't talk about history of this church without mentioning our pastor and his teaching and his vision that he cast to the people of this church. He took a ragtag group of people and he turned us into builders. He turned us into kingdom builders. And he wanted me to mention about Frank's vision for our future and his passion for the church. And I'll take it from one of his writings after a Super Life weekend. That was a leadership weekend, and I wanted to tell you that Pastor scheduled a Super Life weekend right in the middle of the building project, and Frank was not happy. He did not feel that we should have, for any reason, to give up 2 days of work and go to this Super Life weekend, but Pastor would not reschedule it. So he grumbled for a few weeks before, and all the way up to Mayfair Farms, he grumbled about this weekend. But as we sat there and had a nice dinner and enjoyed the fellowship of all of our church family, heard Pastor teach and then cast the vision for the following year, Frank truly enjoyed himself, and he said on the way home in the car, Pastor was right not to reschedule this weekend. He's always right. I hate that. So this is what, and Pastor was teaching us about BHAGs, and if you were here, you knew BHAG is a big, hairy, audacious goal. So he wrote after that weekend, do I still have a BHAG of a huge, splendid, outrageous church building? You better believe it. I know the Lord will build it just as he has done in the past. And first, though, I think he wants to fill it. And I believe that he's done just that. Thank you.
Good morning. It's really great to be here with you this morning. I'm Art Edelman, and I was raised in the Jewish faith. I can still chant in Hebrew my bar mitzvah from when I was 13, and it was all from the Haftorah. And then when I was 16, I was confirmed in the Jewish faith. But I saw a lot of hypocrisy, and I was always apathetic about God and about religion. So when I was an old man at the age of 18, I married the love of my life. She was a Christian woman, and she tried to teach me about the gospel and about Jesus. And she used a soft sell. She didn't hit me over the head with, or she didn't bludgeon me with Jesus. She would just talk with me about it, and I could see the light of Jesus in her. But I had this awesome wife, incredible children, and a great job. So why would I need Jesus? So it was just a long way for me to go. In 1995, this church bought this building. Before that, when my wife was first going to the New Life Church, which was the original name of this church, it was meeting in the Washington School. And I had this vision in my mind of what a church should look like. It should have a steeple, and it should be this traditional-looking church out of a Norman Rockwell picture. And so this just didn't compute in my brain, meeting in a cafeteria. And then whenever my wife would speak, or my daughters were in a show, or, singing in Kids Zone, I would be at services to support them. And I'd come for praise and worship, and like the congregation would flail their arms up in the air. Like, what is this? This was like really strange stuff. So it still had this cavern going. And in 1995, when the Life Christian Church purchased this building, I came in here, and it was this huge cave. It was a printing plant. And before that, like Pastor said, it was a bowling alley. And so my wife conspired to have me work with one of the teams who was putting up that wall. So you have to understand, I have no construction genes whatsoever. So don't lean too hard against that wall. And it is a tribute to God that wall is still standing. I'm sure that Frank came by and fixed up whatever I messed up. But I was, at one point, I was up on the scaffolding and holding the wallboard, and one of the guys was evangelizing. I mean, I realized that this really was a conspiracy to get me to come to Christ. So in May of '96, we were on a family vacation in the boonies of Texas. We were at a dude ranch. And tragically, my wife was thrown from a horse, and she hit the back of her head on some rock. And one moment she was alive and vibrant and healthy. She hadn't been to a doctor in 7 years. And 24 hours later, she had passed away in a hospital in San Antonio. And so the love of my life was gone, and instantaneously I was a single dad of two awesome daughters, 11 and 7 years old. And I was numb. And Pastor and Sharon, who also, they were really close friends, and they would do the soft sell on me too. They flew down to San Antonio to be with us in the hospital. So it was Jesus who carried me through the entire healing process. When we came back from Texas, I would sit in the front row at every Sunday service with my daughters, and I actually had a bucket in my lap to catch every word that came out of Pastor's mouth. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. It was a dangerous place to be in the front row, though, because Pastor, he would get really worked up and then would jump on the first seat. So eventually I moved to the second row to be out of the target zone. So I have seen many, 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 many amazing, miraculous, incredible transformations in people's lives at this church, including myself. The church family is the salt of the earth. They are always there when you need them. Thank you.
I'm the shy, quiet one. I don't know why he gives me the mic. But
Sure you are.
Anyway, good morning. We're Julio and Terry Rivera. He's Julio. I'm Terry. And we just want to tell you a little bit of our story on how we came to the Life Christian Church. About 3.5 years into our marriage, we had separated. We had 2 children at the time. They were, I guess, 4, 3.5, and 1.5. And it was a tough time for us, but we felt that the easiest way, the best way, was just to get out. We separated for about 3 or 4 months. Through that time, I thought that I needed to keep my commitment to, till death do us part. And so we decided to get back together. We made up. Baby number 3 came. And then, we continued on our way, and then about 3.5 years after that, we both agreed that it just wasn't going to work out, and we decided to divorce. Again, tough time, but we felt that that was the best way out. During that time, a childhood friend of mine came to visit us at the house and check up on me. And she started to tell me about this new church that she was going to, and how the music was great, and how the pastor was great, and she's telling me all these things. And my friend and I have known each other since we were 6 years old. And, through our lives, she has been, the type of person that has always needed a man to complete her life. One thing she said to me that I think made the difference for me to come and check out where she was going is that she said, Terry, I'm so fulfilled that I don't need a man in my life. And I just about fell off my chair to hear her saying that. And I needed to come and check what she was up to and where she was going. And so she was getting baptized, and she invited us to her baptism. And I couldn't come that weekend because I was on a business trip, but Julio came.
Sure I did. When her friend said that she was being baptized, a light bulb came up, and I grew up Pentecostal, and many years I was out of the loop for many years. And so when she said that, I thought that was very, very important. And I made a commitment. I said I need to be there. So I remember that Sunday, it snowed a lot. And so I got up early and packed up my kids. An hour later I was here. And as soon as I walked through the door, someone met me and took care of my kids, put them in a kids zone. And I came here. Such a warm group of people. The band started playing, and wow, the music was really, really awesome. I've never heard music like that on a church. And so pastor's preaching that day was phenomenal. It seemed like he was talking to me. And at the end of the service, when he asked for the prayer counselors to come up front, and he asked for someone, for anybody who wanted to receive prayer, I felt compelled. I felt like somebody was tugging at my shirt. But now I know, back then, that was the Holy Spirit calling me, to go. And so that was my day, that was my time, and I needed to do that right there and then. So right here, I accepted Christ that day. Terry wasn't here. And then a few months later, anyway, she can tell you the rest of the story. Go ahead.
I just want to remind you that before we even came to church, we were, the papers were basically drawn up for us to divorce. All we needed was to sign. We weren't fighting and we weren't arguing. It was very amicable, and we agreed to everything, dividing everything, including the last, eating utensil. He only wanted the garlic press. I don't know why.
Because you don't know what garlic is.
And those who know me know that I would never even attempt to pick up a garlic press. But anyway, I waited till he went back to work. His schedule at the time did not allow him to come to church every weekend, and I did not want to come with him. I came with the kids, and I don't know. I knew that as soon as I walked in the door, I can't explain to you what happened or how it happened. I just felt that I was home. Something was happening. Every week that I came, I would just cry during the services, and Pastor was speaking to me. And how did he know my story? He had no idea who I was, but that's what I'm thinking. And anyway, shortly after that, again, I can't tell you what happened, but we are now going on 23 years of marriage, and God restored us.
You accepted the Lord right here too, right?
Yeah, I was saved here. Our children have been dedicated here. We have been involved in life group for 14 of those 15 years. Shortly after coming to church, we were introduced to Betty. She's the grandmother of all life groups. And, year after that, we went out on our own, and we've been doing life group for 14 years. We've been involved in different ministries. Julio's served on the board here. This is our home. The relationships that we've built here are lifelong friends. The decisions that we make are based around church. Where we have chosen to live is because of church. Pastor will be happy we are not moving to North Carolina. One of the things we stand in awe of what God did for us, and one thing that I think about all the time is where would our children be if we had continued on that decision and God didn't intervene? Where would we be? What we learn here through the leadership of Pastor and his teachings and the ministry here affects our daily life. I mean, from the way I manage my staff to deal with the rude, smelly people on the train to anything else that comes my way. My boss is very fresh. All those things we've learned
How to deal with that.
how to deal with that, So anyway, it's just been a blessing, and God has, really done great thing in our life, and I know that a lot of you have a story as well, and we're just so excited to be part of this, project, and we, so look forward to all the lives that are going to, continue to be transformed as we head to the new place. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ben Stoltz, and I've been a member here at the Life Christian Church for 8 years now. And the other day I was actually reading a study about some of the most diverse cities in the country, and Jersey City came up as the 6th most diverse city. And that really personally resonated with me because I grew up in this neighborhood, and I'm the son of a Brazilian artist and a Jewish baker. And I didn't help build that wall over there, but you know what I like to say is that Jesus was the last best Jewish carpenter. So be happy that I didn't help out at all. But in all seriousness, though, I'm really proud of having multiple ethnicities, but at first it was something difficult to grasp. And so when I was younger, when my parents got separated, it served as an opportunity for me to pursue some of my questions further. And so when I was 14, I asked my mom for a Bible, and I proceeded to read 2 pages every night by my bed. And I was really captivated by the vision of the New Testament and specifically the person of Jesus. But I was doing this by myself, and I didn't belong to a church at the time. So after school one day, just had a weight room session. I'm sure you could tell that I still lift weights. And I was talking with one of my teammates, and somehow we stumbled across the conversation of the movie The Passion of the Christ, which came out recently at that time. And we're in the middle of this conversation, and all of a sudden I was interrupted by this baritone voice. And this voice asked me, "Ben, do you belong to a church?" I thought it was God. And it just happened to be Caleb, Pastor's son. He was the masculine-looking fellow on the slideshow that you saw that was in between that star. I'll make sure to tell him later about that one. But Caleb invited me to a youth event called Concrete that we had at that time. But what I really realized in retrospect was he was inviting me to a community that would really help me sort through the questions I was asking and explore some of the wounds that needed to be healed. He was inviting me to be asked by Ray and by Anthony and Kirk to rap alongside them, even though my rhymes were whack and I looked really goofy doing it. He invited me to be asked by Joe Agro. I don't know if Joe is here today, but Joe was featured on the slideshow as well, and to read a lot of books and to be encouraged to be a roaring lamb. And Caleb's mom invited me to a banquet, actually, that Denise was mentioning before, which I couldn't afford at the time. And when I mentioned that to her, she said, "Don't worry about it." I was invited to a community, and I didn't even know what I was getting myself into, because those askers turned me into one. I then asked the church to be able to go on a service trip to Mexico and to Uganda, and asked many of you to help me pay for it. So thank you very much again. I asked to intern with the church and to be able to work with the college ministry and to work with community affairs in this community. And I asked many of us, when I got to speak here a couple of times, to do hard things and to leap over walls. And this morning and this weekend in general reminds me of another wall that we need to leap and another hard thing we need to do. To say bye to 106 and hello to 747. As we reflect on the new things that God is doing in our midst, please don't hesitate to continue to ask of one another. And I'm going to try to push myself to do the same thing, but I'm not planning a service trip anytime soon, so don't worry about that. But not for the sake of a new building, but for the sake of building new people, just like many of you did for me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Betty, the grandma. This is my husband, Willie. Some of you know him by Cisco. Well, how can I start? When I first came to church, it was in 1992. Pastor and Sharon, they came over and took over the pastor that was there before. And a young couple, and I'm about the same age as them. And I was like, what's he going to teach me? But anyway, I was a new believer myself. And as we went on from the community house and on, we came here. And Pastor was talking about the vision, seeing the future, and members, And we only were like a handful then. And he was saying that we're going to purchase chair. I mean, those are great chair. Believe me, we used to fold the metal ones and cold and everything else. So he said you could purchase the chairs for seeing your family members that you dream and hope that they will be here with you. So, of course, I have my 3 kids with me, but my husband did not attend. He was, first of all, not a believer, and he didn't want to hear anything about Christ. So I believe that, buying a chair for my husband, who did not sit at the time, he was going to show up. 10 years of praying, believing in faith, God brought him here. So you have to trust the future, and you have to trust what pastor is teaching. Faith, believing, and the big goal, whatever, big audacious goal, it is for real. I'm here, my husband's here, my kids are all believer, they're on their own now, and trust him that this is small because we serve a big God. We serve a big God, and so I'm gonna let him tell a little bit of his story.
Yeah, of course, all the nagging and come on, go to church every Sunday, and I just want to come on, leave me alone. Just go to church and come back and just pray for me. Yeah, after a while, my kids were like, come on, Dad, come to church, please. So all right, let me give this a shot. So I started coming to church. What are they going to teach me? I figured, let me see. I'm going to wear a tank top, do-rag, shorts, and slippers. Let me see what kind of reaction I get from this church when I come here. I walked through the door, and get Greg Boy started giving me the look. I'm like, what you looking at? This is God's house. I come in here as the way I want. After a while, they accepted me like that, So, started liking church, After a while, I got involved with it, my kids. And besides, when she had life group, I used to hide upstairs. She didn't tell you, I used to take the kids out to the park for ice cream and stuff like that, I kept them occupied so they can have a nice, life group, Besides making popcorn and stuff like that, I did everything. I'm going to put you back on my wife. I'm a little shy talking up here, but here you go. And God is good.
That's it.
That's a tough one to follow. And I'm not shy. Hi, I'm Charlie Chase. For those of you who don't know me, and for those of you who do know me, I'm still Charlie Chase. Anyhow, 17 years. A lot of history here. But I'd like to share with you a little bit of my story. About 20 years ago, my wife and I, Rosemary, who the Lord blessed me with, we were searching for a church. We wanted to start a family, but we had decided that if we were going to have a family, we were going to do it with a church. And we looked down around our area, which is down in the Edison area, and we looked around for a while and really didn't come up with anything. And my dad passed away at that time also, so I really got disconnected from church. Just didn't want to have anything to do with it. Didn't think I needed it. Things were okay. But I also had a major issue with drugs and alcohol. That was in my life. So we kept looking. She kept looking. Finally, our next door neighbors, they were holding a life group down in Metuchen, where we lived, and she went to it. She kept trying to get me to go, but it was, you know, I worked till night. I worked late at night, and just couldn't make it. And then in God's wonderful plan, they switched it to Monday night, which was my night off. So I quickly ran out of excuses for Monday night, and because football didn't start till 9, and they met at 7, so I started going to life group and actually began to enjoy it. But I was still battling. I had my own thing, and wasn't really grasping the Christ thing. So we kept going, and things began to work in my life, and I kept listening and trying to grasp what was being said. And I was just struggling, you know. I really did at that point begin to want to live a clean life. But as many of us know, drugs and alcohol grab you. And no matter what you think you're going to do, your body wants it. So I kept doing my thing, and then I began to really try to stand up against it, and we began to come up here and started attending church, and I was still battling. And then I finally decided that through prayer, we began to really pray on it. And one of the first Christ miracles in my life was that he just, I can't give you a date or time, he just removed the urge from me. And it's been 18 years since I've been clean. And it is, let me tell you, if you don't believe in miracles, talk to me, because it was a rough road. But he freed me from it. But then I had my next problem was, like, how am I going to have fun? You know, I can't go out to the bars, watch the game, hang with the buds, all that kind of thing. But God knew my heart. He knew every need of my heart. And that was the time that we started redoing this place. And suddenly I was realizing that I was coming up here 4 or 5 nights a week, spending it with godly men and changing my life and having fun without those other things. And it was truly life-changing. Not only was I getting fed spiritually, but I was being shown that I could have fun, and being a Christian was fun. So I spent time up here. We got ready to open up the church, and it was a Saturday, and my wife called me. I was at work. She called me. She said, come on up. They need some help. They need some extra hands to get this place ready, to get it open Sunday morning. So I came up here about 6 o'clock. She told me, don't worry, you'll be home by 11, 11:30. Get a good night's sleep, get up here. Sunday, celebrate the whole thing. Well, I came up. We started spending time. We were working, and slowly the people all started going away and going home and getting ready. And it was myself, Andrew McLeese, and another gentleman, Phil Powell. And we were here. And we were out in the hall, right in front of the what is the Welcome Center now. Of course, there isn't carpeting out there. But we were out there, the three of us, on our hands and knees, trying to pull the last pieces of carpeting together and holding the glue down and just making it work and bringing it together. All we had to do was finish this one section of carpeting, and we were out of here. Well, we got that all done, and we all stood up, and we were high-fiving, all excited. And we looked, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. So much for 11. So at this point, I'm like trying to decide whether I'm going to drive back to Edison, clean up, drive back, or I'm just going to hang out. You were going to get me the way I was, you know. And so I finally decided, okay, I'm going to go down, going to shower, not even going to try to go to bed, just shower, dress, come back up. And it was on that trip home, going down the parkway, I saw the sun begin to rise. And I realized at that point, this was the first sunrise I had seen in 18 years that wasn't either drug or alcohol induced. So God is good. He will take you through any trial. And let me tell you, since that time, I've sat on the board of deacons, worked with the prayer ministry. I'm now on the pastor's advisory council. And to be involved in all these things, I look back at my own life and you know, from where I came from to where God has brought me. And truly, it's where God has brought me. It's nothing that I did. And I'm just thankful for what He has done and what He is doing now with this body here. It's exciting to know that we're going to go from this building, 106, up to 747. But as Pastor's already told us, it's not about the building. It's about the body. And this body is truly going to go big, big places. And I'm excited, and I hope you're excited to be on this journey. God bless.
I was not expecting to feel this emotional right now. My name is Carrie, and Pastor asked me to share a little bit about how I've grown spiritually since I came to TLCC. And I actually accepted Jesus as my Savior a long time ago when I was in my early 20s, and I was baptized back then. And for a lot of different reasons, I kind of went astray and made some very bad life decisions. And I did a lot of running from God because I really didn't think that those arms that spread out on that cross could possibly be big enough to wrap themselves around me. And I stayed away for a really long time. But God is really faithful. And He put people and He put opportunities in front of me that made Him front and center. And there was no getting around it. And so I very quickly felt Him saying, you know, Carrie, I really want you to be part of a church again. And I was like, oh, no, no. And I fought Him for a long time. It probably took me about a year before I found a church that I even wanted to visit. And that church was TLCC. And I remember I snuck in. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I just wanted to get into a seat. And I snuck in and sat right back there in the back row, and I got into a seat right when the band started playing, the lights went down. And the minute that started happening, I just knew I was home. And I think I cried that entire service. The entire service. I just cried, bawled. And so fast forward, pretty quickly, they were talking to me about baptism. I said, nope, been there, done that. It's okay, don't need to do that again. And God had different plans. He said, no, I really want you to. And I said, but I don't really want to. I did that. Remember, it was a really cold Super Bowl Sunday, and the heater in the baptismal was not working, remember? And he says, yeah, I remember. I'm like, but what about my hair? I don't want to mess up my hair. And he was like, no, I really want you to do that. I said, okay. And I realized when I was baptized right over there, here at TLCC, that the difference was that first time I was acknowledging Jesus as my Savior. But that second time here at TLCC, it was about making Jesus my Lord. and making him the Lord of my life. And that difference has made all the difference, because in the process of surrendering to him in the past, I'm not even sure, I guess about 2 or 3 years that I've been here, so much has changed. And I think sometimes the biggest miracles take place in our own hearts, you know. And I have become an incredibly different person. And in the process of surrendering each little bit of my life that Jesus has asked for, he has given me so much more in return. And I keep thinking about, you know, first of all, I have experienced that peace that surpasses all understanding. I don't know if I could explain it to you, but I can say I have it. I know that. And I also keep thinking about how Scripture says that God can do more, immeasurably more, than we could ever conceive or think of or even dream up in our wildest dreams. And I feel like since I made that decision, every single day has been a day that I feel like I am the main character in a novel that God is writing. And every morning I get to wake up and turn the page and see what he's going to do next. And it's just the coolest thing. And I think that I look at this new building that we're doing, that we've built, and I think that that's what's going on here now. God is writing this incredible adventure novel, and we all get to be a part of it. And it's going to be really awesome, and I'm excited about it. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Abe Thomas. It's been 18 years since I came to this church. I came from India in 1992 to do residency at St. Joseph's Hospital. A friend of mine invited to the church. I was a believer, but I didn't want to go to the Pentecostal thing. So, you know, I had too much of the prosperity theology and all that stuff. So I said, you know what, no. Finally, she pursued me so much that one day I said, okay, I'll come. So I came, and guess what? Pastor's talking about prosperity. So I said, you know what, let me come one more time and see. So I came again. And he was actually talking about the other side of prosperity, which I really liked. It's not all about name and claim or whatever it is, and the reality of it. And from then on, we've never missed a service or whenever we were here. It's been an incredible journey of 18 years. You know, I came from India, and, you know, culturally we're different, all that. And, you know, after about 6 months, we had the building project, like he talked about. You know, I've never seen nail guns and sheetrock back there. It's all about bricks and mortar. But anyway, I learned all of that. During that 6 months, it was incredible, because every evening, I used to work at St. Barnabas doing my residency at that time. Early morning, I finished that call and come here and unload the trucks and things like that. It was fun. And, you know, there was a certain community at that time. I really enjoyed that time. We developed so much of friendship during that time, putting all this rock and stuff like that, but it was great. Fast forward, you know, I still remember the first day when we started here, we were just finishing the carpet at the beginning of the service. That's how close we were. And that morning, I still feel that it was a sense of, you know, like accomplishment, joy. It was like one of our children's marriage or something like that, a wedding day or something like that. I still feel like that. We quickly grew. As Denise said, we had to find new places. I still remember I was at the board at that time looking for places. It's about, our budget was about $300,000 to head a place. And guess what? Our miracle performing God shows up and said, there's a place for you for $1.2 million up in Ridgeway campus. And pastor was asked, the monks never asked him, can you afford it? Do you think you have the money? Are you interested, was the question. And he said, yeah, I'm interested. And the journey started. We got that, miracles after miracles, building after building, so much of renovations, remodeling. And it's the incredible ways God has seen us through this thing. You know, there was times during this process, I'm sure all of you know, that we come again and again and ask for so much of these contributions, this and that and the other. But we did it. We did it. It's not a small thing. there was times when we were not sure. This is too much of a project. You know, we are not deep pockets sitting here. We are regular people. It's $10 million. There's no way. But God has seen us through. And this is a thing which we can incorporate to our lives. You know, this church, through this 18 years, had brought so many good things in my life. You know, we grew up together in this church. My children grew up, thank God. They're fine young men today. And my family, we're blessed, thank God. And we're looking forward to the next step. And the only other thing I would just want to say about Pastor, you know, I've done many roles in this church as board and pastor's advisory council and every other thing which is possible. But I've seen the integrity of your leadership, Pastor. I've seen times of trouble, I've seen challenging times, and I've seen you going through those times, and I've seen times of joy. But you've always kept the people of the church the number one thing in your life. I still remember a church group or a youth group or something like that coming from the Midwest was trying to do something. And you know, we are a diverse church, and people from the Midwest are not that diverse. So when they came here, I said, and it so happened that we were out there something, and they made some remark which he was so much upset about, and they had to rewrite the script the next morning. He made them do that. So he's so careful about who's speaking what in our church because he so loves each and every one of us. And the integrity, because I've seen the time when we discuss the budget and everything I've seen, this man's integrity is is commendable. And I think that's something which we need to see, that we have a leader who is able to do that with everything, clarity and openness and everything. And I think at this point of time, as we jump into the next level, as the pastor said, that remember where we came from. We should keep that humility. And there are a lot of people which we can attract to the kingdom of God through our service. So with that in mind, I want to encourage each and every one of you to work hard, to follow God, and to follow this man, which I followed the last 18 years. Amen.
Lately I've been looking back along this winding road to the old familiar markers of the mercies I have known. I know it may sound simple, but it's more than a cliche. There's no better way to tell you than to say God's been good in my life. I feel blessed beyond my wildest dreams when I go to sleep each night. And though I've had my share of hard times, I wouldn't change them if I could, 'cause through it all, God's been good. Times replay and I can see that I've cried some bitter tears, but I felt His arms around me as I face my greatest fears. You see, I've had more gains than losses, and I've had more joy than hurt as His grace rolled down upon me undeserved. God's been good in my life. I feel blessed beyond my wildest dreams when I go to sleep each night. And though I've had my share of hard times, I wouldn't change them if I could, 'cause through it all, God's been good. but the best way I can say it is this: God's been good in my life. I feel blessed beyond my wildest dreams when I go to sleep each night. And though I've had my share of hard times, I wouldn't change them if I could, 'cause through it all, God's been